Hey everyone, Yoyston here, and I hope you all are doing well. I'm here with another news video. I feel like I'm going to be making a lot more of these this year, next year, and so on and so forth, just different from my normal content as we get new news regarding Middle-earth projects and so on and so forth. Because today, if you all remember those movies from 2023 February that were announced last year without any sort of titles, any of that, we've got news today that Peter Jackson and the rest of the crew are working on a new Gollum movie, a release date for 2026. And from what we can tell, it's going to be Warner Brothers, it's going to be Andy Serkis at the helm, and Andy Serkis as Gollum. The working title for the project is called The Hunt for Gollum, a similar movie of which came out many, many years ago. It was a fan film called The Hunt for Gollum, and I always really loved this. So the fact that we've got Peter Jackson, Fran and Philippa, we've got all of these guys that are just absolute legends from the 90s and the 2000s for all their work on the Lord of the Rings trilogy and the Hobbit trilogy and so on, that they're all coming back now in the mid to late 2020s to work on the Gollum movie, among many others, is just awesome and insanely good news, right? And so I want to break this down. I'm going to leave a few articles that are talking about all of this in the descriptions below, so you all can check it out. Of course, all these other Middle-earth channels, friends of this channel, Nerd of the Rings, and Broken Sword and others have videos talking about this as well. So if you want their takes, I'd recommend checking their channels out. But as far as what we've got here is that, IGN says, executive produced by Ken Camus with Serkis and the Imaginarium's Jonathan Cavendish. Those are the producers. And then we've got, of course, again, Jackson, Walsh, and Boyens being Fran Walsh and Philippa Boyens. And they say together in that joint statement, it's an honor and privilege to travel back to Middle-earth with our good friend and collaborator Andy Serkis, who has unfinished business with that stinker Gollum. As lifelong fans of Professor Tolkien's vast mythology, we are proud to be working with Mike DeLuca, Pam Abdi, and the entire team at Warner Brothers on another epic adventure. Sorry if I mispronounced any names. Right, and Serkis, of course, coming in with his Gollum impression. He says, "Yes, precious, the time has come once more to venture into the unknown with my dear friends, the extraordinary and incomparable guardians of Middle-earth, Peter, Fran, and Philippa, with Mike and Pam and the Warner Brothers team on the quest as well, alongside Weta and our filmmaking family in New Zealand. It's just all too delicious." And I have to agree. This is incredible news, especially for anyone who fell in love with Tolkien's works like I did through the movies, right? There are a lot of fans that were from the era before the Peter Jackson movies, maybe from the animated movies, or just from picking up and reading the books as they found them in a library or a bookstore back in the late 1900s. But so many of us today fell in love with this franchise through Peter Jackson's movies and the subsequent games, with potentially a newer crowd. We have yet to see this manifest, but potentially a newer crowd coming in through the Rings of Power show. And so many of us, myself included, were disappointed to not see Peter, Fran, and Philippa being on board with Rings of Power, really, and being collaborators. I imagine the show would be much better if they were, of course, but now to see that they have their own projects in the works. As for our implications, right? It's been over 25 years now since the making of the original Lord of the Rings trilogy, and we still have the same amazing, wonderful, dedicated people in love with the works, wanting to create more. That says something, right? That they all loved the project and Middle-earth and each other so much that they want to create more a quarter of a century later is just incredible. And so my heart is warmed to hear all of that. I was teaching earlier today, and I got a text from my dad talking about all of this. My dad, of course, was the one to introduce me to Lord of the Rings through the movies and so forth. So, again, just warms the heart, of course. So I'm so eager to be talking about it once again back here. I'm excited for my future videos and podcasts with Royan talking about all of this. But there are also implications for the future, right? Seeing that this is a bit more of an anthology type of, single character character-driven type of movie. I imagine that the other movies that are in production that were soft announced last February are going to be like this. And like I've said in previous videos, I love this idea, right? There's a lot of hate around cinematic universes now that they've been rather overplayed since the MCU. But I actually think a Lord of the Rings, or a Middle-earth rather, probably not Lord of the Rings, Middle-earth cinematic universe would be great if done in the right way. And what do I mean by right way? Well, I think this is the perfect way into it. We explore characters and backgrounds and lore that all build to the greater, larger stories that we know, but with their own more intrinsic stories at play as well, right? Gollum is an interesting character to choose, and I say that because of the Gollum game that was, released recently that people didn't really love. The thing is it's Andy Serkis, right? And his portrayal of that character that we're all so excited to see again, and how that character is pretty much treated by Andy Serkis and the rest of the team. That'll be really interesting, right? And he's got good lore, but there are other things here as well, right? In the hunt for Gollum, the one hunting for Gollum is namely Strider, Aragorn, right? At least that's how it is in the lore, and that's how it was in the fan film, also again titled The Hunt for Gollum. And so does that mean we get a recasted Aragorn, since Viggo Mortensen is 25 years older than he was during the making of The Lord of the Rings? Do we go Viggo Mortensen back as a de-aged Aragorn, right? That they digitally de-age him or something? How do we play with that? I mean, the fact that we will see another Aragorn on screen again from these same creators is something I never thought I would see, right? And Aragorn's my favorite character of all time, of fiction and fantasy, movies, books. He's my favorite character. So the fact that we will see him hopefully playing a role in the hunt for Gollum, him and Gandalf, and the same goes for Ian McKellen here. Do we see him back as Gandalf in Mirkwood after Gollum's captured? The fact that we could see these guys back in action is just amazing. And again, it's a nice isolated story. The Gollum game tried to tell at least part of it. And it's explored well enough to where we're familiar with it enough, but it'll be great to actually see it and all the rest of the events play out on screen. So a ton to look forward here to, and a ton more to look forward to as well, because it looks like these are the kind of movies we're going to be getting, more tightly knit, maybe character focused movies that play into Peter Jackson's cinematic Middle-earth experience. And so do we get Howard Shore back for some music? Hopefully. I really hope so. That would be awesome. The Gollum theme, the Gollum song from the Two Towers. Do we get different renditions of that? Maybe in a different key, in a different tone, sang differently, things like that. Like, do we get almost like poetry, right? Where it feels very similar but different at the same time, since it is this different and independent, unique story. I'm just so excited. And again, there are a couple more movies coming our way, so I've seen this thrown around by my friend Matt at Nerd of the Rings. Are we in a new golden age of Tolkien's works? I really hope so. Because Rings of Power has been divisive. Gollum game wasn't super well regarded. I think Return to Moria was phenomenal, especially with other people. But we've been getting a lot of Lord of the Rings projects, and there's definitely a lot more that's been announced that we haven't gotten yet. All of which I hope to be good, but we'll see if it is. And there's more Rings of Power on the way. And so the return to form here, love to see it. Excited to see more. Excited to see what will come of this. And we've got 2 years until this comes out, 2026. So that gives me a lot of hope for the future, and I'm excited to see where we go with it. So I'll keep us up to date. Again, try to make more of these informal, informational videos. And so thanks to our Valar tier patrons and YouTube members who make these types of videos and all my videos possible: Peter Sheppard, John Hume, Maz Gibs, Rhys Jenkins, Arthur Merlin, Theodore, Moon Viper, Andrew Carlisle, and Zoomi. Thank you all so much. My friends, let me know your thoughts about all of this in the comments below. Thank you all so much for watching and for joining me on this adventure. Until the next one, and there are many more to come.